How my unfaithful husband gets caught with a office fling and wins the divorce battle with everyone on his side. The double standard is really what drove me crazy. Hey everyone, I really need to get this off my chest because it's been eating me alive. It all started about 6 months ago, and my life has been a roller coaster since then. My husband and I have been married for 10 years, and I thought we were solid. You know, the kind of couple that makes it through anything. But apparently, I was wrong. One day, I was doing some spring cleaning, and I found this old phone in the back of his closet. It was his phone, one he'd claimed he lost months ago. I wasn't expecting anything sinister. I mean, who would? But then I turned it on. And oh boy, what I found was a nightmare. There were tons of text messages between him and this woman named Lisa from his office. They weren't just friendly chats. They were filled with sweet nothings, plans for secret getaways, and even talks about a future that clearly didn't include me. I felt like I was punched in the gut. My hands were shaking, and I could barely breathe. How could he do this to me? How could he throw away 10 years of marriage for some office fling? I decided to dig deeper. I started going through our shared computer, checking browser histories and social media messages. I found more evidence: emails, Facebook messages, even shared photos of their trips together. My husband had created a whole other life with this woman, complete with weekends away and romantic dinners. Every new piece of evidence felt like a knife in my heart. I couldn't understand how he had managed to hide all of this from me for so long. That night, I confronted him. I had the phone in my hand, my heart pounding in my chest. When he walked through the door, I just blurted it out. "Who the hell is Lisa?" He looked at me, confused at first, but then his face went pale when he saw the phone. He tried to deny it, but the evidence was all there. Eventually, he admitted to everything. He said he felt neglected, that I wasn't paying enough attention to him. It was like a punch to the gut. Instead of owning up to his mistakes, he tried to blame me. The double standards were infuriating. If I had been the one cheating, I'd be called every name under the sun. But when he did it, suddenly he was the victim. The worst part was his parents. When they found out, they blamed me too. "Maybe if you were a better wife, he wouldn't have strayed," they said. It was like I was living in some twisted nightmare where the rules only applied to me. I remember sitting down with my best friend Sarah, crying my heart out. She was furious on my behalf. "How can they blame you for his actions?" she said. "This is classic victim blaming. It's so unfair." Sarah helped me realize that I wasn't alone in feeling this way. There were so many women out there who had gone through similar experiences, and it was time to fight back. I filed for divorce. I wasn't going to stay with someone who didn't respect me. But that's when the real nightmare began. You'd think with all the evidence of his infidelity, the courts would be on my side. But nope. Turns out, things don't always work out the way you expect. My husband hired a hotshot lawyer who painted him as the doting father and hardworking husband who made a mistake because his wife was too busy for him. Meanwhile, I was portrayed as the cold, neglectful wife who drove him to it. It was ridiculous. But somehow the judge bought it. Despite all the messages, the photos, and the blatant evidence of his affair, the court sided with him. He got the house. He got primary custody of our kids, and I was left with nothing. The judge even ordered me to pay spousal support. Can you believe that? I was the one who got cheated on, but I was the one paying for it. I was devastated. I felt like my whole world had fallen apart. I went through a really dark time, questioning everything. Was I really that bad of a wife? Did I deserve this? I felt so alone, betrayed not just by my husband, but by the entire system that was supposed to help me. I started seeing a therapist, which helped a lot. She helped me realize that none of this was my fault. My husband's infidelity was his choice, not a reflection of my worth. But still, the emotional scars were deep. I lost so much weight from the stress, and I had trouble sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their messages, their plans for a future that didn't include me. I had to face my kids and explain to them why their father and I were separating. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. They were confused and hurt, and I felt like a failure as a mother. How could I protect them from this pain? How could I help them understand that this wasn't their fault? The legal battle was far from over. My ex-husband used every tactic in the book to drag out the proceedings and make my life miserable. His lawyer was ruthless, constantly trying to dig up dirt on me, even things from my past that had no relevance to the case. They argued that I was unstable, unfit to have custody of my children. It was humiliating and degrading. One day in court, his lawyer presented a photo of me at a party from years ago, suggesting I was irresponsible and reckless. I had to defend myself against these baseless accusations while my ex-husband sat there, smug and confident. The bias in the legal system was glaring. I couldn't believe how easily my character was being assassinated while his infidelity was brushed aside as a minor indiscretion. The court hearings were draining. Every session felt like a battle, and I was constantly on edge, wondering what new tactic his lawyer would use against me. My own lawyer, while supportive, warned me that the odds were against me. "The system tends to favor men in these situations," she said. "We'll fight, but you need to be prepared for the worst." Outside of court, the societal double standards continued to rear their ugly head. Friends and acquaintances had mixed reactions to our separation. Some were supportive, but others whispered behind my back, speculating about what I had done to drive my husband to cheat. It was infuriating. Why was the burden of blame always placed on the woman? I attended a support group for women who had gone through similar experiences. Hearing their stories, I realized just how pervasive these double standards were. One woman, Rachel, shared how her husband's affair was excused by their community because he was a successful businessman. She was labeled as the nagging wife, who didn't appreciate him. Another woman, Maria, was shamed by her own family for not forgiving her husband's indiscretions. These stories mirrored my own, and while it was comforting to know I wasn't alone, it also made me angry. Why were women expected to endure and forgive, while men were given a free pass for their betrayals? It was a harsh reality that I was now living through, and it made me more determined to fight for justice. Throughout this ordeal, my support system became my lifeline. My best friend Sarah was my rock. She was always there to listen, to offer a shoulder to cry on, and to remind me of my worth. She even accompanied me to court hearings, offering moral support and helping me stay strong. My family, initially shocked by the revelations, rallied around me. My parents were heartbroken, not just for me, but for their grandchildren. They couldn't understand how my husband, whom they had welcomed as a son, could betray us so deeply. My siblings, though busy with their own lives, made time to check in on me, offering practical help and emotional support. But not everyone was on my side. Some mutual friends took my husband's side, believing his narrative of being the wronged party. It hurt to lose friends, to see people I had trusted turn against me. It was another layer of betrayal that I hadn't anticipated. Dealing with my children's reactions was one of the hardest parts of this whole ordeal. They were young, confused, and hurt. They didn't understand why their dad wasn't living with us anymore. I tried to explain things in an age-appropriate way, but how do you tell your kids that their father chose someone else over their family? My ex-husband tried to paint himself as the fun-loving dad during his custody time, showering the kids with gifts and outings. It was a stark contrast to his treatment of me. He seemed to think that being a good father was enough to erase his betrayal. I had to navigate the tricky waters of co-parenting, trying to maintain stability for my kids while dealing with my own pain and resentment. There were times when the kids would come home from a weekend with him, asking questions that broke my heart. Why can't Daddy live with us anymore? Why does Lisa always come with Daddy? It was a constant struggle to protect their innocence while being honest about the situation. I decided to fight back. I wasn't going to let my husband's betrayal and the legal system's bias ruin my life. I started gathering more evidence, consulting with my lawyer to build a stronger case. I interviewed character witnesses, documented his erratic behavior, and even hired a private investigator to gather more proof of his infidelity and misconduct. One of the hardest things I did was to meet with Lisa. It was an awkward, tense meeting, but I needed to understand her side of the story. She was defensive at first, but eventually she opened up. She claimed my husband had told her we were separated, that our marriage was over. It was another lie he had spun, manipulating her just as he had manipulated me. My lawyer and I decided to appeal the court's decision. It was a long shot, but I couldn't live with the injustice. The appeal process was grueling, filled with more court hearings, more evidence presentations, and more emotional turmoil. But I was determined to fight for what was right. It's been a year now, and I'm slowly picking up the pieces. I've moved to a new city, started a new job, and I'm trying to rebuild my life. I still have to deal with my ex because of our kids, but I'm learning to set boundaries and protect myself emotionally. Looking back, I realize how deeply ingrained societal double standards are, how quick people are to blame the woman in these situations, and how flawed our legal system can be. But I'm stronger now. I know my worth, and I won't let anyone take that away from me again. I know that was a lot of text, but it really feels good to finally get this out.